Doesn't really matter what matchup it is when the players are this good. This good at the video game. This exciting. Spawning in the upper left-hand corner of Babylon. One of the most exciting pro players we have, I think. He likes to give us some fun builds. Give us some... He doesn't really play passive. You know what I mean? It is Dragon Kites Gaming's Dark. Certainly one of the favorites to win this bracket today. His opponent in the lower right-hand corner, a bit of an underdog for this one. I think he's going to have a tough time in this match. But we've seen him take games and take series off of some of the best. Gotta root for him. He needs your love and support. Recently joining Matcherino Esports, it is NightMare. Whew. We have one Twitch chatter in particular believing very hard in Dark. All of the channel points going into the bet, into the prediction. 169,000, which is an excellent number. Good work. I think it's a very fair bet. Dark is going to be quite a bit favored here. That being said, it does feel like sometimes Dark, he puts himself in a precarious situation. And I think he likes to be there. I think he's very good in those kinds of situations, in that he has really good decision making when things get hairy. And I think that's so important in StarCraft. When things get weird and a little wild, Dark can figure out how to navigate that better than a lot of other players, better than I think any other Zerg in the world. He's just so strong in those weird positions. He's very good at base trades, I would say. But that does mean that sometimes he volunteers to be in weird situations. He'll put himself there in that position where if something goes wrong, he can be in a very bad spot. And NightMare is a very strong player. If he has a solid game, maybe take some solid engagements at key moments, take down Dark here. I'd love to see it. Looks like he's going to play a pretty standard opening. Nothing too crazy. NightMare, of course, famous for being the first player to use Dark Templar in professional play in the GSL. Not Dark Templar. It was the DT Blink ability, the Dark Templar upgrade, that got put into the game and everybody went, oh my god, that's so overpowered. And then absolutely nobody used it for like 2 months. And then NightMare used it in a pro match and then he lost. And that's kind of it. The only other really interesting thing that happened with DT Blink was Classic using it against Rogue 2019 BlizzCon World Championships. In one of the most hype, honestly, I would say the most hype moment of that tournament. Because the rest of the tournament it wasn't the most hype StarCraft. Raynor beating Serral in that one was pretty sick too. That was the first time we had seen Serral really get... well, I guess it wasn't the first time we saw him lose or anything, but I don't know. It meant a lot for Raynor to win. Anyways, NightMare's been around for a minute. He has had some cheeky builds, but generally speaking these days, he plays a more standard style, something a bit more expected of the Protoss against the Zergs. If anything, I would imagine Dark might be the one to pull something a little bit weird out here, a little bit different. But NightMare's going for a Glaives build. And honestly, these have not been super popular as of late. I think it's just a 4-gate Glaives build. So it's not super committed or anything. NightMare is going to have some, almost said some Banelings. It'd be pretty impressive if NightMare got those out. He's going to have some Glaive Adepts heading across the map. But right now he's trying to hide them. He's trying to stop Dark from knowing what's coming his way. But remember when I was like, if anything, Dark's gonna do something. Yeah, Dark's was trying to send these queens across the map, though. He turns them around and starts up 4 drones, deciding instead to play it a little bit safer. He kills that Void Ray. But now NightMare, I feel like he's just got to be worried about this. There are still quite a few Lings out on the map. And the Glaive Adepts have been tipped off here. So now Dark's going to play defensive with the Lings and Banes he's made. Instead of sending them across the map, he's going to keep the Queens back at home. This game almost got really weird, but Dark decided to not let that happen. Again, his sense of when to make moves like that is so huge. I think a lot of players, once they've decided sending the Queens across, that's it. They're going to do it. They will not turn them around. Dark's not afraid to pull the plug. The moment he's like, oh, this is not the right decision, I can get them out of here, he just does it. And now suddenly these Glaive Adepts are not going to get any damage done. Dark just drones up behind this. I think his economy is a little bit lower than he'd like it to be right now. But if the Adepts don't get any damage done, it's going to be totally fine. Now behind this NightMare, he's getting into a Prism. He's got Blink on the way for his Stalkers. A bunch more Gateways finishing up as well. So he could try to put on a lot more pressure with this. Ooh, he's even got some Sentries. I like that. Sentries here could be quite good to cordon off the Lings in the front from the Banes. Once that Ling buffer is dead, the Banelings become a bit less scary. But Darky's getting into a Spire. We saw how well Mutas can tear apart a Protoss in the last series as DRG went for heavy Muta play against Estrella. That game got... Speaking of games getting weird, that game got a little weird. But the Mutas did a very good job for their part in that game. So it'll be interesting to see if Dark goes for heavy Muta play or if he just wants to make a handful, try to be annoying to NightMare. I think one place that Dark is going to excel that NightMare might struggle with a little bit is going to be multi-prong pressure. Getting those Mutas in while trying to defend Dark's own base. Maybe a Link counterattack, things like that. Be very tough for NightMare to deal with. NightMare, though, he's trying to do kind of the same thing, right? He's sending some Adepts around the north side where there's not any creep spread for the time being. There's also not any drones here. This base very far away from being done. Oh, and the Stalker's getting caught out a little bit here. I think one or two of these guys might go down as the Lings try to get on top of them. There they go. Lings, Roaches, and Raptors pull back. A bold blink forward there from NightMare. He's going to lose a few more Stalkers for that. Sentries and Stalker reinforcements were a little slow to join up. Banelings without speed are actually going to get picked off here. The Adepts are shading through. They're poking at this base. The Queens are going to poke them away. War Prism is here as well for NightMare. Starting to target down some Queens is actually really nice. Oh, speaking of targeting down, though, that Prism's getting taken out. He's going to pick up 3 of the Adepts to get out of there. Stalkers, in the meantime, clearing up some creep in the middle of the map. Dark not really taking much damage there. I think he lost a Queen, maybe a couple of Lings. He's at 106 army supply. He wants to go across the map and get something done, and here we go. As he pushes through the middle, those Mutas do hit the back lines. It is just a few of them. Just going to be 6 of them out on the map, probably for the entire rest of the game. But it's enough to occupy NightMare. He's got to focus on this. Probes getting focused down, 13 of them dying. At the same time, Dark trying to push through the middle of the map. Not, honestly, the best push, though, there. As the 2 Colossi were just mincing those Lings up. Dark, he has to pull back. He's got to be a little bit careful with that army. Stalkers blink forward. Most of the Mutas have gone down now. They're not really much of a threat anymore. I wouldn't hate to see NightMare put down cannons and shield batteries in these mineral lines. But he's definitely got to rebuild probes. He's down to 52 workers. He's trying to take this 4th base. It's almost done. But he just doesn't have the worker saturation to cover all those bases. Dark, in the meantime, he's still just on a lair. This is very late for Dark to transition to the Hive, and I think we're seeing kind of the result of that early attempted push getting sent home. Dark's economy is looking pretty good, but it's not crazy. He's not at 90 drones or anything. He does have that 5th base up, but it's not really doing too much. his hives quite a bit later than we usually see him get to it. Honestly, his hive's usually done by like 7 or 8 minutes. He's kind of crazy. He's got a lot of army, but I feel like NightMare's army is actually pretty solid against this. And in a defensive army engagement, I favor NightMare's army. A couple of decent force fields, some shield batteries, some Colossus pullbacks. I think Dark has to wait for Vipers to come out, and that's kind of a long way away. In the meantime, he's trying to find some run-bys, but NightMare is pretty well buttoned up as he gets that probe count back up to a decent spot. Dark is fully maxed out. The hive is nearly done, but I think he's got to sacrifice some of these units and maybe try to get some damage done in order to free up supply for whatever it is he wants to make on hive. I can't believe these mutas are still getting damage done. It looks like that might be kind of the end of it, but it's funny. 10 kills between those 3 mutas. NightMare, though, he's tied up the worker count. He's continuing to produce probes as more drones come out. Storm is on the way. I think that's a very solid late game choice here, especially against this Lingbane heavy army. Dark, though, he is going to try to get some damage done, sending the Banes in. Super Shield Battery turns on to try to save these guys, but that's just going to be a dead Nexus and a lot of dead probes here. Is it worth it for Dark to trade this much army out? I feel like the answer here is yes. NightMare's going to push forward. I think NightMare might try to counter push, but my God, look at that supply. NightMare plummeting. He went down to 125. This counter push suddenly feels like a bad idea. He just doesn't have the worker count behind it to reinforce it. He lost a ton of stalkers against those Banelings. And Dark, I mean, he's kind of cruising. He rebuilds a bunch of the Banes. A nice zoning storm here. The Observer does stay alive, at least for the time being. Dark, he's looking for some counterattack potential. There's not a lot of defense at this base. Lings could pose a big problem, especially as the Stalkers just blunked away. Oh no! They blunked their last blunk here. They get completely surrounded. The Lings get in. The Roaches and Ravagers joining up now. Even Banelings coming across. NightMare desperately struggling to come home to defend this base. He has a recall, but he's not using it. The Lings, they get in through the wall. What are these Stalkers doing? They're resting on their laurels here. Not holding the door, and NightMare losing every single probe. He's down to 12 workers, sending some probes up to this base. But his natural, the third base is dead. The main base is dead. Oh, and I felt like NightMare was in a good spot. And then Dark just caught him out of position with his whole army. And just like that, Dark takes the advantage. Doesn't fall to any counter pressure. NightMare is going to do one final shove. Dark just straight up counterattacks. He says, I can kill your stuff faster than you can kill mine. And he's absolutely right. There is just no way NightMare's base stays alive long enough. Dark's trying to make some stuff back at home. I don't know if I love that. I mean, if you're going for the base trade, I think you just have to go for the base trade. I don't think Dark knows about that base to the top right. But there's absolutely nothing here. If like 3 Lings showed up, this would just be a dead base. NightMare's entire base is just gone. He doesn't have anywhere to recall to except this. He has no tech. He's, at the moment, just trying to kill stuff. But his army is just getting caught killing things that aren't important. Overlords don't matter at this point. Dark is supply blocked, but who really cares? Stalkers just killing Overlords. They need to focus on the bases. And Dark, he's found the base. Oh, this is just, it's just not enough. Even just the Banelings are going to kill stuff here. Going after the Colossus, they know how important that is. The rest of the units show up. And guess what? There's no more buildings. It's just these ones. And as this Nexus falls, so too will NightMare. As Dark gets a victory by technical win. And it's so funny. I feel like you never see that. This is the second week in a row we've seen Dark win through the technicality of killing his opponent's buildings. Pretty sure it was him that beat Classic like that last week. That is too funny. Oh. Dark gets the solid victory there. Made it look very tough for NightMare to fight against him. I desperately need some water. As I join this lobby, I'm just going to grab some water real quick. Don't you worry. We're getting into the game. Back before we even loaded in. Did all the games just end at the same time? Shout out to the people watching every stream out there. We should have, hopefully, one stream per round of 8 match, because they all started at exactly the same time, which is kind of cool and kind of rare. I feel like we don't see that very often. Usually they kind of stagger through throughout the bracket. Kind of cool to see them all start within a couple minutes of each other. And now we're getting into game 2, all at the same time, I'm sure. Spawning in the lower right-hand corner of Gressvon, we have Dragon, Kitesies, Dark. And his opponent in the upper left for Matcherino Esports, NightMare. The other streams that are going on right now, if you're wondering, Dave Testa, who also helps organize the tournament every week, is currently casting, I think he's casting Gumiho versus Hero, actually. Oh my god, Dark, what are we doing? Steadfast, of course you all know and love, is casting as well. Not sure what he's covering. And then the Cranky Ducklings are covering the fourth match. Dark's going to go for the proxy hatch. Now, this is not a 12-pool variety, which NightMare is scouting with the probe. It's important to note, this is just the good old-fashioned hatch blocking a Nexus. It's just to delay the base and give Dark an economic edge here. He's not trying to win the game. He's not trying to sneak lings in. In fact, he still doesn't have a spawning pool. He is much more focused on just stopping NightMare from getting into the game he wants. And this is the kind of move I was talking about earlier when I talked about Dark liking to put the game in a weird state. He's forcing NightMare to do a different build than he usually does. And if you guys play StarCraft, you know how important having your build order be correct is. As somebody who knows what the build orders are, but doesn't really know how to execute them well, I mess them up all the time, and I lose games straight up just because I messed up my build order a little bit. And Dark is he's just putting NightMare into a weird spot. NightMare he's got 2 Zealots now. He's got double Adept being chrono boosted out. He doesn't have a Nexus yet. We're 2.5 minutes into this game. This is all very weird for NightMare. Now, I'm sure he's dealt with this before, but it puts him in a different frame of mind. Now he has to kind of improvise his way into the mid game. I love that this drone is still running around, by the way. Finally goes down. But NightMare is going to have quite a few early game units to send across the map. The 2 Adepts and the 2 Zealots are always a little scary to fight in the early game. Dark, though, he's making a good few lings. A couple of queens have popped out. Should have enough to just defend this and not really take any damage. NightMare, I think, might have to run away. But he's at least going to just pressure the front. There's no third base yet for Dark. These units will stop a third base from going down for at least a little while. NightMare, in the meantime, is chronoing out a Void Ray. Ooh, okay. Okay, maybe he's not as lost as I thought. This feels like a conscious choice to do in the follow-up. Oh my god, a second Stargate. Oh, this is hot. That's hot. I like this a lot. So what this is kind of trying to do is taking advantage of the fact that Dark's spawning pool was a bit later, so he might be a little bit lower on queens than usual, and Dark's going to be focused on just pumping his economy right now. Getting the extra base, getting the drone count up, And how do you take advantage of that? And in this case for NightMare, it's going to be just trying to get some tech out, and some tech specifically that Dark won't be expecting. I actually thought it was just going to be Void Rays. I think NightMare opened up with a Void Ray last game, or at least he made one at some point. It's not that weird of an opening, one Void Ray, just kind of sharking around trying to find Overlords, etc. But Phoenixes, oh, that's weird. You just don't see this. You do not see Phoenixes very often against Zerg. It's super duper rare. Like, Phoenixes in general are pretty rare, but you see them against Terran decently often. PvP, they'll occasionally come into play. We've actually had a few Phoenix versus Phoenix battles lately. Oh, man, but against Zerg, this is like, Roddy does this. And that's about it. So I kind of love seeing this come out of NightMare. Now, the problem is Phoenixes have a few very exploitable weaknesses. One of which is a lot of lanes. The next of which is buildings. They don't do particularly well against buildings. They can't hit them. Spore crawlers do quite a bit of damage. So those are going to be crucial strategies for Dark to take advantage of. And also the other one is to just rebuild everything they kill. But Dark, he was not expecting this. He did not see them fly out, and suddenly he is losing 2 queens. Third one getting picked up a little bit overzealously here by NightMare. And he's going to lose a Phoenix for that. He's trying to pick up the one that has the most transfuse energy, but as another queen shows up, it looks like he's going to lose another Phoenix. Not quite yet. I don't know. Dark seems to be holding on quite well. I think there were too many queens here for this amount of Phoenixes. Another one does show up at a crucial moment. I think there's a transfuse left. Ooh, the Void Ray goes down. I think that's the last of the energy there as another Phoenix falls. 4 Phoenixes in a Void Ray going down for just the 4 queens. And this was a cool idea from NightMare. That was not a good start, though. I think ideally there, your first few Phoenixes, you want to get kills without losing anything. Phoenixes, like pretty much any other air unit or any other like harassment unit like this, they stack. Not stack. What is it? Snowball. That's the word I'm looking for. The more you get, the harder it is to defeat them. But now, Dark, he's already defended round 1. He lost a few queens, not the biggest deal in the world. And he's got an answer, an immediate answer, the Nidus Swarm going down. He's just going to Nidus the front of NightMare's base. He's going to send queens and roaches straight to the front door. He's going to knock on this door as soon as possible. NightMare has not spotted this. He's working on +1 ship weapons right now. That's such a cool idea, but I don't think it's necessarily going to come into play. The Nidus has not been scouted. The Phoenixes are all on the wrong side of the map as that Nidus pops and queens start jumping out of her. NightMare spots it. Another Nidus starts up right in the natural. Probe's getting pulled to fight it as shield batteries desperately try to go down, but the roaches are already here, and there's so many queens with so much transfused energy. A Phoenix goes down immediately. Oh my god. And this is just it. This is like the final fight in the Legacy of the Void or something here, where the Protoss is just trying to hold on against the Niduses as the queens hit the front. This third base is, I mean, there's just no way. The Void Rays do move down, and honestly, these Voids could be a saving grace for NightMare, but I don't think it's going to be enough. Oh, the Super Shield Battery turns on, and he can't even save that +1 ship weapons. The Cyber Core dies immediately, which means only Zealots warping in from now on. The Void Rays are the real key, though. There's triple Stargate production. The Void Ray count right now sitting at just 4. 3 more on their way. I don't think this is enough to kill this many queens. Their queen count is just crazy. 12 of them out here. And it looks like NightMare is going to have to try to fight them sooner or later. He picks up a couple, but the Phoenixes getting hit. The Void Rays getting killed as the shield batteries run out of juice. The roaches are breaking through, and GG gets called. Dark, he takes the 2-0 and defeats NightMare. The Dark defeats the NightMare. How appropriate.